Good morning, I'm Claire Murphy. Welcome to the Solo Bureau. First up, I want to say a really big thank you to disability activist Carly Finlay. She reached out to me recently to ask if I wanted to do some accessibility training with her, and of course I jumped at the chance. So yesterday she and I sat down and I learned a whole lot more about ableist language, about making my social media and podcast easier to read and hear, and using descriptions for those who have vision or hearing impairments. If there is ever anything you hear on this show that you feel needs a tweak, please let me know, because it was through a conversation with a person on Instagram who goes by the handle SpectraFlare. They told me my text colours and sizes weren't working from an accessibility perspective, so I changed it up. And from Vision Australia research, I found a font that is specifically for vision impaired folks. It's called Atkinson Hyperlegible. So we're all learning together here, folks. Okay, let's get the day underway, shall we? Here's what's been happening while you were sleeping. It's Friday, June 26. Two powerful earthquakes have collapsed buildings in the capital of Venezuela. A magnitude 7.2 tremor hit west of Caracas, followed by a second 7.5 quake less than a minute later, bringing down buildings across the capital. It was a public holiday in Venezuela, so many people were at home. The initial estimated death toll released by the US Geological Survey has a terrifying range of somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 people. Aussie mining giant Fortescue's been hit with a class action lawsuit that claims a toxic and misogynistic workplace led to women being sexually harassed and then face violent retaliation if they spoke out. In the documents filed yesterday, one woman explained how she was dragged into a dark alley by a man who tried to forcibly kiss her. Another woman described how she returned to her accommodation to find a man in her room. A third was allegedly told to resign after she fell pregnant. There's also many reports of being called sexually explicit names and told to do sexually explicit acts, the experiences ranging from serious sexual assault to daily microaggressions. Fortescue declined to comment on the case itself, but said they are committed to providing a safe and respectful inclusive workforce for all employees and contractors. Off the back of his reported axing from Channel 9's Today Show, Karl Stefanovic has also cancelled a scheduled appearance on his new radio show with Eddie McGuire. It's been reported that Stefanovic has stepped back of his own accord, and not because ARN are considering sacking him, but the company has sought assurances from the presenter's management about future plans for his independent podcast following the recent interview with far-right anti-Islam figure Tommy Robinson. Stefanovic has been criticised for failing to challenge any of Robinson's ideology during the hour-long conversation, where at one stage Stefanovic puts his arm around his guest and praises him for his tenacity and courage for standing up for what he believes in. Even Prime Minister Anthony Albanese spoke about the situation at an event yesterday, saying Stefanovic had moved further and further out on the edges of what is mainstream political debate in this country. He says he thinks that can have an impact on social cohesion in this country. The interview has since been taken down. The teenager who was arrested for allegedly planning a terror plot against then Liberal leader Peter Dutton and the Labor Day parade has been found not guilty. The boy was just shy of his 16th birthday when he rode his scooter around collecting parts to make a pipe bomb. His text messages and diary detail a fixation on infamous terrorists like the Oklahoma City bomber and the Christchurch mosque shooter. He used his laptop to search Peter Dutton's movements as part of a plan to oppose a Liberal Party plan to build nuclear power stations. He also wrote about deep mental health issues he experienced after his parents separated. His lawyer argued that his chatter to a friend about planning the attack was nothing more than a dark joke. The jury returned a verdict of not guilty of preparing a terrorist attack. Convicted child groomer Ghislaine Maxwell is again appealing her conviction, stating her rights were violated. The former socialite says many of the documents disclosed in the Epstein Files Transparency Act show her due process rights were not upheld because lawyers for Epstein's accusers served as de facto prosecutors and agents for the government, and that she has been imprisoned illegally. Maxwell has been sentenced to 20 years behind bars for grooming and recruiting underage girls for Epstein, her former partner. She's repeatedly argued that Epstein's agreement after his original conviction also shields her from criminal prosecution. Prosecutors say her latest claims are either baseless or filed too late. US District Judge Paul Engelmayer will review her habeas corpus petition. A close friend of AFL legend Tony Modra says the 57-year-old is out of the worst after his freak accident last week. Modra, known for his high-flying marks while playing for the Adelaide Crows and Fremantle Dockers, suffered facial injuries when a branch pierced the windscreen of his truck as he drove near his property south of Adelaide on a windy night last Thursday. His mate, former Adelaide Crows player turned commentator Mark Rasciuto, says he's still in a lot of pain, but he's improving a lot. Well, that's it for the headlines, friends, so toddle off if you're leaving us here. Have a good one. If you are sticking around, I asked you on a Spotify poll what you wanted more of from your news, and you responded overwhelmingly with Aussie stories, and especially local, state and territory-based stuff. So that's what we're doing, whipping around the country to find out what's been going down in your neighbourhood, from new international flights to nudie runs and unsolved murders. To Tasmania first on today's whip around on what would turn out to be the coldest morning of the year in Hobart this week. Thousands of people jumped into the water with zero clothes on. It's part of the Dark Mofo Arts and Food Festival, the swim marking the winter solstice, the longest night and the shortest day of the year. The water temperature was somewhere in the mid-teens, while the air outside of it was a frosty 4 degrees. This year's event, which has been running since 2013, was sold out, despite the organisers increasing capacity to 3,000 participants. But unlike back in 2013, police didn't threaten to arrest anyone for public indecency. In keeping with the dark theme of the festival, this is the music they played under the vision on their Instagram account of all these people smiling and laughing and frolicking in freezing cold water. Also down in Tassie, workers at the iconic Bogues Brewery have asked for the parent company to rethink closing the Launceston Brewery. Lion Nathan announced the almost 150-year-old brewery would close its doors in November. The building is the beer's spiritual home. Union coordinator Amy Brumby says Bogues belongs to Tasmania and is part of the state's history, an important tourism attraction. She says no one will want to drink a Bogues made in Queensland. It will kill the brand. In Western Australia, and obviously the spotlight's been on WA for the birds diagnosed with the deadly strain of bird flu this week, but more has been going on over West, including WA Police offering a $1 million reward for information that helps solve the state's first unsolved murder in a decade. Erica Coyne and her son Lloyd Mitchell were found dead inside their home in Albany on February 8. 69-year-old Erica had suffered serious assault injuries and her son Lloyd was found critically injured. He sadly died in hospital from his injuries. Detectives who've reviewed hours of CCTV footage and have spoken to more than 200 people about the murders have been unable to find the pair's killer, prompting the WA government to offer the reward money. According to Erica's daughter, Mary, her mum was a kind woman and her brother a gentle giant, leaving her stumped as to who may have done this to her family. The WA Minister for Police believes someone in the community knows what happened that day, saying now is the time to tell us what you know. If you have information that may help police, contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. The Queensland state budget has locked in billions of dollars to cover the build of the Olympic infrastructure ahead of the 2032 Games. Under the 2026-27 budget, the Liberal National Government says all major competition venues and the athletes' villages are now funded. The new stadium at Brisbane's Victoria Park, built on land sacred to Aboriginal people who continue to protest its construction, is about to start work in earnest. Also in the budget, the state's 50-cent public transport fare has been locked in. The back-to-school bonus has been increased to $150 and they announced no new taxes. Over $2 billion is going into new hospitals in places like Bundaberg, Coomera and Toowoomba, and there's money for safety upgrades to the Bruce Highway. The Residential Activation Fund will add an additional $1 billion to community housing builds. The Queensland Treasurer said the government is operating at a $6.2 billion deficit, but they're charting towards a surplus by the 2029-30 financial year. And also, while we're in Queensland, just wanted to follow up on Mary, the missing Tasmanian devil, who made an unprecedented leap from her enclosure at a Gold Coast Wildlife Park. After 2 weeks on the run, she has been found less than 2 kilometres from where she escaped. She was sadly a bit worse for wear. The park described her condition as unstable, but she will hopefully make a full recovery. To the top end, and allegations of bullying and culturally unsafe practices are being investigated in the Northern Territory's Opposition's Office. Labor leader Selena Yubos says she's taking the allegations seriously, confirming a parliamentary investigation is underway following challenges around some of the internal workings of her office. No details have been provided as to what exactly led to the allegations, but the Northern Territory News is reporting cultural safety concerns around Ms Yubos' treatment of Indigenous staff, with complaints relating to a senior member of her team and her own handling of those reports. The New South Wales government also handed down their budget this week, with motorists getting some relief after facing a spike in fuel prices due to the war in Iran. The New South Wales government has promised to reduce car rego by $100, $80 for motorbikes, and a 1-year reduction in the weekly toll cap from $60 to $50. Opal fares also are frozen. The budget also outlined major investment in building and upgrading 32 hospitals across regional New South Wales and Western Sydney, 260 schools built or upgraded, and a huge investment in rebuilding roads across the state impacted by flooding. There's also money in this budget for an energy efficiency program for low to middle income families and funding for domestic and family violence programs to keep more women and children safe. There's also disability support for the Thriving Kids program. Treasurer Daniel Mookie revealed a $2.3 billion deficit for the year ahead, which should decrease in the next financial year. Victoria Police this week investigated accusations that former state Liberal leader Matthew Guy placed his party room colleague Moira Deeming in a headlock. Ms Deeming claims it occurred at a community event in Sunshine on May 23. Security camera footage captured Mr Guy placing a hand on her back during a conversation, but not the altercation as described. Police issued a statement late yesterday saying following a thorough investigation, it has been determined there was no offence detected. Mr Guy is now reportedly seeking legal advice on potentially suing Ms Deeming for defamation. Well, nearly 2 years since they were axed, Canberrans can again fly to Bali direct. Batik Air cancelled their Canberra to Denpasar flights just 4 months after launching the service back in 2024. Now, not only are the direct flights to Bali back, the carrier, Virgin Australia, is the first Australian airline to offer international flights out of the nation's capital. The airline says they've already had a ton of interest in the flights, with the first few already heavily booked. They'll run 3 return flights per week, with a plan to up that to 5 during school holidays. Finally, to South Australia, and they also recorded a case of the deadly avian flu strain this week, with a migratory seabird found to be carrying the disease. The southern giant petrel was discovered by surfers involved with the SA Bodyboard Club competition at Knights Beach near Port Elliot on the south coast. It was confirmed to have the virus on Wednesday. While the surfers who touched the bird haven't been contacted by authorities yet, staff who handled it have reportedly been placed on precautionary medication. The H5N1 strain has jumped from birds to humans before. It happened in Hong Kong back in 1997 and led to the deaths of 6 people. Now, in this case, they didn't realise the bird could have the avian flu, as it was discovered before the confirmed cases in WA. And that's a wrap, team. Thanks for spending the week with me. I hope you have some fun plans lined up for the weekend. I am doing absolutely nothing. I will get my hot water bottle primed, and I will get my book out for a good cozy couch hang, which honestly is my idea of bliss. Let me know what you're reading too. I'm always up for a recommendation. All right, I'll catch you on Monday. Bye.